Shalom.
Asher ki chanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen.
I'm learning.
So yeah, you keep doing it, eventually you'll learn.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about many things around the idea of Sephora, who was Moses' wife. One of them, what does it mean to be married to a leader? What kind of husband can you be or family man when you are a leader? And what do you give up and what do you get on both sides? Oops, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn that off. Oh, that's Risa. Wait a minute. Hi, Risa. No. Yes. Hannah?
Yeah.
So this is Risa saying the link to join the class is wrong.
I'll send her a different one. I'll send her the correct one then.
Okay. Hannah's going to send you the correct one. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if she can. I don't know. Anyway, I've already started, so I hope to see you in a minute. Okay. Oh, well, I don't know what's going on with our stuff. All right. So those are the questions about Sephora, and she's mentioned there are two incidents where she's actually present, and then a third where she is the cause of something that happens to Miriam, Moses' sister. So if we don't get through it, as I said before, I have to leave early to teach Browerman West today, substitute. But first, does everyone have the handout or not?
Yes.
No. Okay. So I'll put the handout in the share. So
Thank you.
It's not there. Okay, hold on a minute. Thought it was out. Let me just do this.
I printed it out today from the link underneath, join the group right under it there. It said.
That's right. That's the handout. So you do have it.
I have it. Yeah.
Okay. I can get it.
It's all right. Let me just, I always have it under the join.
Join on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
It's always there. Hold on. Just open it for a second. I thought I had reopened it, but I guess I closed it. Okay, now I go like this. Now I share. It should be share. Sephora. Okay, share. Okay, so Sephora, this is kind of just like a summary for us to get an idea. There's another thing that we do learn, that Sephora was dark-skinned. She was Black. And a lot of African Americans are very proud of the fact that Moses' wife was a Black woman. And she's from Midian, which some say was the Sudan, or Lower Egypt, below Egypt is the Sudan, and something like that, so that she was dark-skinned. So who would just like to read? And I can make this bigger if you don't have it.
I'd love to.
Okay. Why don't you read about Sephora?
Okay. Sephora was the wife of Moses. The rabbis describe many traits to her. They consider her different than other women in a positive sense, in both appearance and deed. She heroically saved Moses from an attack by circumcising her son. Sephora's actions led to a Talmudic discussion of women's abilities to perform a circumcision. The rabbis explained that Moses sent Sephora to her father's house in Midian only out of fear that Egyptian servitude would harm her. After the giving of the Torah, a life of sexual abstinences was imposed on Moses. Sephora found this difficult, and she Miriam found forming a bond of feminine solidarity as Miriam.
Here, whatever. Okay, let's stop here. Let's just stop here. Thank you. And let's go to the text, because I think we should look at the text. And this is from the Torah. And you need to know the background of why did Moses leave Egypt. He was a prince, supposedly, he was raised in the palace. He spoke Egyptian, he maybe spoke Hebrew, but he definitely still identified as a Jew or as a Hebrew, an Israelite is what they would have been called, an Israelite. So, okay, Penina, why don't you read this section?
In Hebrew or in English?
In English.
Where did we stop?
Sometime right here. Can you see it on the thing right here? I'll make it bigger.
Sometime, it's so small, wow.
I'm making it-
Sometime after that, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinsfolk, and witnessed their labors. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen.
Okay, so let's just stop there. What does this tell you about Moses in terms of his identity, even though he was raised in the palace?
He was identified with the Hebrews.
He's still
He saw
identified
an Egyptian man hitting a Hebrew person, and so he decided to mix in.
Yes, but he probably dressed like an Egyptian, looked like an Egyptian, behaved like an Egyptian because he'd been there since a child. And yet he clearly knew, here's the first time that we learned that he actually still considered himself a Hebrew, that he identified because it's called his kinsmen, his people.
Right.
So Moses was, had this double identity that Americans can have. I'm a Jew, I'm an American, I'm connected to Israel, a lot of people have that dual identity. And it's interesting for us, even if we saw somebody beating up a Jew, would we immediately identify with that person the way Moses does? Okay, continue.
Okay, he turned this way and that, and seeing no one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
So what does this also tell you about his status in society? And what would you think this meant about what other people thought about how he identified himself?
I don't know. Maybe there was anti-Semitism in Egypt.
Well, that could be the case. Well, of course they were the slaves, but beyond that, what does this phrase tell you? Can you see what I'm getting at? How he felt, how he wanted to be seen, or what he was worried about.
He didn't want anybody to find out that he killed the Egyptian guy. So in the meantime, he's also protecting his identity at the palace.
At the palace.
Yeah.
He turned this way and that way. He looked around, there was no one there, and he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So it's not like he wanted the Egyptians to know that he sympathized with the Hebrews. He was secretly, it seems to me, sympathizing with them, right? Because otherwise, he could have said stop. He didn't even speak to the guy or order him to stop or whatever. So do you think, what kind of an act was this? Was this murder or manslaughter, in your opinion?
I think it was manslaughter. He hit him and I don't think he meant to kill him.
What about anybody else?
It said in Hebrew, it says he saw Ish Mitzri, he saw an Egyptian man hitting a Hebrew man, one of his brothers. This is a very important word that we're missing here. He said he's hitting a Hebrew man, one of his brothers.
Achiv, one of his brothers, not a kinsfolk, but one of his, meaning his.
That's very interesting that right away he identifies himself as that he's a brother to the Hebrew nation, to anyone from the Hebrew. That's a very strong feeling.
Okay, so what do you think, again, like Susan Ehrlich, what do you think about was this like a thought out act, or what do you think when he?
It wasn't premeditated, so that's certainly not it. And when you save a life, first of all, there's a difference between hitting and beating, the degree of severity.
Right.
So I think the beating, which we see in the text here, not hitting one of his kinsmen, he's saving a life essentially. And it's one of those things that when you see something evil happen and you fear for the life of the victim, he came in and saved this Hebrew it wouldn't inure to his benefit later. There's also a discussion of looking this way and that. I always thought it was like to see if he's going to get caught. But another interpretation, a more favorable one, he was looking to see if anybody else could help save the Hebrew victim there. And being that there was no one there to help him save the victim, he took it upon himself. So I think this is a courageous act, one of three in which he will help victims. First the Jew, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, and then Sephora, the non-Jew at the well, and there's a third one that will be coming up. I won't give it away.
Okay. Okay, so now the next day, what happened? Nina.
ויצא ביום השני,
Yes,
so he went out the next day and he found two Hebrews fighting. So he said to the offender, why do you strike your fellow?
And the word in Hebrew is rayacha, which is like
Your friend.
your friend, Yes. Okay. Go on.
So why do you strike your fellow? And he retorted, who made you chief and ruler over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Moses was frightened and thought, then the matter is known.
Okay, so all right, so Susan, you're saying he saved a life, he was being a rescuer. Was this appreciated at all?
No. And that sometimes happens when you see that, when you see two people fighting and you try to intervene and and stop the fight, sometimes they turn against you, and you see that in the newspapers all the time, unfortunately, as well.
So let me ask everyone, what do you think then the attitude of the Egyptian slaves at this point was toward Moses? What do you think?
It's a slave mentality.
Okay, but I want to hear from somebody else, like Sharon.
Okay.
What do you think? You're muted.
Who?
Sharon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they viewed him as an Egyptian, working for the Egyptians, and that he was above them. They were slaves and he wasn't doing slave labor. He had a higher position.
Right. They knew that he had killed an Egyptian who was beating a fellow slave. They knew that because they said, are you going to kill me the way you killed the Egyptian? So what was their mentality? How did they view Moses, knowing he was a Hebrew who was living in the palace? Risa, what do you think?
I think they were unhappy with him, that he should have left the palace. They knew he was the Hebrew. He knew he was a Hebrew. Get out of that house.
Or they resented him because he thought he was better than they. Because you're right, they had to be jealous.
I separated myself from the word jealous.
Okay.
Because they didn't want to be in his position. If you're jealous of somebody, you want to be in their position. I don't think they wanted to be working for Pharaoh either.
But they didn't want to be a prince, live in luxury, you don't think?
No, I don't think so. I think there was a negative feeling about it.
That's interesting.
Maybe they were afraid that, he was a Jew who killed an Egyptian, that if people found out, the punishment would be put down on the Jewish community, whatever that was.
The Hebrew slaves.
Yeah.
But they're saying you might be a prince, but you're not chief and ruler over us.
Right. Who do you think?
That's not jealousy.
Who died and made you God? That.
Exactly.
So they're saying, oh, you're going to tell us what to do. So I see it as resentment.
Not jealousy.
Yeah. Okay.
That's like my younger sister always, when I was left in charge of babysitting, she said, you're not boss over me,
You're not the boss of me.
You're
Exactly.
not the boss of me.
And-
That was her favorite statement. And I just want to interject something here. Our talking about this is, I think, very relevant to what comes later on when God asks Moses from the burning bush, to lead the Jews out. And Moses, understandably says they're not going to listen to me. I mean, besides his speech impediment,
Right.
this one he had proof that look what happened when I tried to save 2 Israelites, save them. And now you're going to ask me to lead them out. They're not going to listen to me.
And if you remember the Midrash about Serach, when he showed up, Serach, who had lived from, hundreds
Forever.
they said to her, is he the one to save us? And she said, did he say such and such? And they said, yes. He said, he's the one. So they had to have confirmation that he was authentic. Penina.
I am kind of like now thought about that reading that the Hebrew community all along knew that he's there and he's Hebrew.
Right.
Because otherwise they wouldn't talk to him and say, who put you?
Exactly.
Higher power than over us. So this is very interesting that the whole time they know that he is really one of the Hebrew people. So no wonder that he had problem later on in the desert for them listening to him and paying attention. There was a lot of, I think, conflicting emotions regarding his position, and his loyalties. This is really I just noticed it.
Yeah.
That this is something that to think about.
There's a lot of psychological baggage attached to their relationship with Moses from the very beginning.
Right.
And then he realizes, even though I hid the body, I looked around, no one there. I guess the slaves knew because they were there, maybe, but the matter is known. And then we hear this, when Pharaoh learned of the matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh, and he arrived, or he settled, he says he sat in the land of Midian, and sat down beside a well. Okay, so, Susan Ehrlich, you already alluded to this, but what is the symbol of the well in the Torah usually? What does that usually tell us that's going to happen, or something at the well?
You fall in love.
Exactly. You meet a woman at the well. It's all over every time. A lot of times we meet people at the well. So went to the well and wait a minute. Okay. I'm going to make this bigger so we can see this part. Okay, I'll make it bigger. All right, so who would like to read this part about Midian? And they call it the same word, Kohen, this little religious leader. So who wants to read this part? Stacy.
Okay, are we starting with now the priest?
Yes.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. They came to draw water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But shepherds came and drove them off. Moses rose to their defense, and he watered their flock.
So, it's interesting. With Rachel, Jacob watered her flock too. He actually lifted the big stone off the mouth of the well and watered her flock. But what happened with Rebecca, if anybody remembers?
She watered the camels.
She watered the flock. She watered the flock. So I think that says something. I've always loved Rebecca. And there's something about Rebecca that stands out as, I always said our ancestors should have been Abraham, Rebecca, and Jacob. Not Isaac.
I wear a water pin, Rabbi, on my jacket, a water pin on my jacket.
Yeah. Okay. So, but here, and the shepherds came and drove them off. And for some reason, there's always this conflict between the shepherds and the shepherdesses, or the girls and the guys. It's some kind of social construct that we see often with the shepherd. Either it's they get along or they don't, but they drove off these girls. Also, 7 daughters. like Tevye. Actually, Tevye in the story by Shalom Aleichem had 7 daughters. In the play, he had 5, but in the actual short story about it, he had 7 daughters. I wonder if Shalom Aleichem knew that, and that's why he made it 7 daughters. That's interesting. I don't know. But anyway, that's a lot of daughters.
Yeah.
What do you, Susan, do you want to say something? You're muted.
Sorry, 7 is a symbolic number too.
That's true. It's a magical number. It is symbolic and sort of holy, and it signifies completeness and fullness and all that. So now when they return to their father, and this is the father's name changes. It's Yitro later, but Ruel here. And I want to look at it. Vayom.
Some commentaries suggest that that's a title.
I know, but Penina, does Ru'el, because it's not with an aleph, does Ru'el mean anything to me, Penina? You're muted. You're muted.
All right. It's somebody who, it means somebody who either saw God, but not actually saw God visually, but mentally. He acknowledged God, saw God, Reuel. It could be like a friend to a God. In other words, he had gifts of insights that other people didn't see. And that's why he was supposed to be kind of like a priest in a community. But I wanted to tell you something about the well. The wells usually was a landmark. When you wanted to do a homestead in the Bible, like Abraham, the first thing he did, he dug wells. So the wells are more territorial. It shows territory, who that territory belongs to. So when these people came to chase the girls and not letting them use the water, they're actually fighting here about not just the water, it's a territory.
That's interesting. I want to
Came
go.
and helped them because they needed the water.
Also, Ro'im are shepherds.
Right.
So Ru'el could be a shepherd of God. Shepherd
Yes.
of God. But yes, so it's an interesting name. So maybe it wasn't his name, it's how he was known. And Yitro was his real name, Jethro. And they came home to their father and he says, how did you come back home so soon? And they answered, an Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock. Okay, so what do you think Moses looked like? I've thought about this. If they called him an Egyptian, how do you think he looked? Don't forget, he was young, handsome. What do you think he might have looked like? You've seen hieroglyphics.
No hair.
Bald, bare chest, maybe.
Bill Brenner.
A neck plate, a neck.
The headdress thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a short skirt or whatever they would call that, a kilt kind of thing. Sandals. Handsome though.
Not like, he would not be dressed like a shepherd.
He wouldn't be a shepherd. An Egyptian, and don't forget he was an Egyptian prince. Even though he ran away, he must have been well dressed and handsome, and with one of those the wrist bracelets, those thick things that you see about those handsome Egyptians. So they said an Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds, and he even drew water for us. And his father said to his daughters, where is he then? Why did you leave the man? Ask him in to break bread. So why do you think he immediately said that? I think of Tevye when I hear this. What do you think? What do you think he's really saying?
Well, he's an Egyptian. He could be wealthy. He's thinking, I got 7 daughters, and he's proven now to be kind to the daughters and protective of the daughters. Bring them over. Sure.
You left an eligible man at the well? Bring him home before somebody else claims him. Ask him here to break bread. It says break bread, but it says, and he will eat bread with us. Ask him to eat. Call him. he says it to all of them. Karanlo, girls, call him and get him here to eat dinner, eat food with us. Okay, that jumps to the thing. And Moses consented to stay with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Sephora as a wife. So here is how he, and why Sephora? Who was Sephora? And so now we look at some midrash about it. Oh, and one more. And she bore him a son named Gershom, associated with Gershom, a stranger there, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. It says foreign land, but we know that expression, I am a stranger in a strange land. Pnina.
I think that am I muted again? No.
No.
I think he liked that he had a sense of justice, that he was protecting their territory, because the first, and we know later that Jethro is the one who gave Moses the idea of how to judge the people.
That's right.
The whole justice system that we have today started there.
That's right.
So I think he saw that he had a very big sense of justice.
Yes,
So
I agree with you.
Starting to him dressed as an Egyptian, they may not be in favor of these people in the desert there. He recognized that he has a good sense of being a protector, good sense of justice. That's my take on it.
I cannot disagree with you. But now let's look at some of the midrash about this section.
Okay.
I'm just making it bigger, you know. Okay. Oops. Okay. So who would like to read some of the midrash about the meeting at the well? How about Leslie? Leslie, you want to read?
And I'm starting at the meeting at the well. Okay. This is the one time I didn't print it out. As with other biblical figures, the venue of the first encounter between Moses and Sephora, his future wife, was beside a well. In the Midrashic expansion, when the daughters of Jethro returned home, they told their father that a stranger had saved them from the shepherds, and he asked them, why did you leave the man? Ask him to break bread. With the words to break bread, implying marriage, Jethro hinted that Moses might marry one of them. Upon hearing her father...
Hold on. I didn't realize this, that to break bread could imply marriage, but that's what the Midrash is saying. So it's more than just eating with us. It's...
Well, I think they probably saw through to his, his intent.
Coming into the family or whatever. Continue.
Okay. Upon hearing her father, Sephora immediately ran after Moses like a bird.
Okay, and Sephora means bird, little bird. Kit Sephora. Sephora means bird.
Okay.
Oh.
According to this midrash, Zipporah wanted to marry Moses, acted accordingly, and achieved her goal.
So maybe they all rushed, but Sephora got there first.
She was the fastest runner.
And she brought him home. And they say, but her name's Sephora, so she flew to him, and brought him back. So that's one of the midrashim about it. Okay, who would like to, Risa, let's read another one.
Second tradition has Jethro deciding upon Zipporah's marriage to Moses after he brought Moses into his home and came to know his qualities. Jethro was one of the magicians of Egypt, and when he saw Pharaoh's staff with its magical symbols, he desired it and took it. He planted the staff in the garden of his house, and no man could approach it. When Jethro invited Moses into his house, the latter entered the garden and saw the staff. He read the symbols on it, extended his hand, and took it. When Jethro saw what Moses had done, he exclaimed, "This one will redeem Israel from Egypt," and therefore gave him his daughter Sephora in marriage.
So that's like what King Arthur legend?
Yeah, pulling the sword out of the rock.
No, that I
Jen,
never.
They think he's Egyptian. They think he's wealthy. He's got, looks the part. Doesn't Jethro care that his daughter's not marrying what he thinks is not a Jew? Do they not? They don't care?
He's not a Jew. Jethro's not a Jew. Jethro's an Egyptian or a Midianite priest.
Oh, sorry, I came late.
That's okay. He's not Jewish. Moses ran away. He's in Midian, which is probably the Sudan. And they were most likely black, the family, or very dark skinned. But what it is he had been a magician in Egypt. He took one of Pharaoh's magical staffs and he planted it in his garden, and no man could lift it out, just like the King Arthur legend, where no man could take out Excalibur, the sword. And then Arthur takes it out and Moses lifts it out and he reads something on the staff. We don't know, some important letters or meanings. And Jethro saw when he removed the staff, this man is stronger than Pharaoh, in a way, is what he's saying. He will redeem Israel from Egypt. And he gave him his daughter. He said, wow. Okay.
Wow, by George, straight away.
Okay, here's a third tradition. Stacy, why don't you read?
Okay. In a third tradition, the initiative to marry Zipporah came from Moses himself. When he was with Jethro, he saw how fine her actions were. He went to Jethro and asked, "Give me your daughter Zipporah in marriage." Jethro replied, "Do you want to do to me what your ancestor Jacob did? When Laban gave him his daughters, Jacob deceived him and fled far away. If you are asking me to give you Zipporah, swear to me that you will not take her far away from me. I will swear to you upon this condition."
Okay, so, that's an interesting midrash, because Jacob stayed for 24 years and then he left to go home, and he took his wives with him, Leah and Rachel. So, okay, so this is tricky. So I want to read it. Moses immediately swore to him, as it had said, Moses consented, Vayoel, to stay with this man. Remember, he said he'll stay with this man, understanding that the word Vayoel is a customary wording of a vow. Because of this pledge, Moses had to return to Midian after he had been sent to Egypt. As it had said, Moses went back to his father-in-law, Yeter. Moses went from the rabbi. Rabbis learned that Moses went to Egypt, returned to Midian. This is too complex. I don't care about that. I think what's more interesting is the next one. In another midrashic account, Jethro agreed to the marriage between Moses and Sephora on the condition that their firstborn would be an idolater or a pagan. And this is why they say the next section, Moses gets in trouble. So he said, number one, he said, you can marry her if your first son is like our religion or the religion of Midian or Egypt or whatever. Another thing is that he said, don't take her away from me. And he took her down to Egypt and he ended up sending her back. And we know that because right before the 10 Commandments are given, Jethro shows up with Zipporah and his two sons. So we know that she went back home. So poor Zipporah, she's given in marriage, or she wants to marry. We don't know. Her father gives her, Moses asks her, but she's married to this guy who, when she meets him, is just like an everyday Egyptian man who's going to work for her father. She has no vision or idea who he will become and how it may affect her life, which happens, you marry someone and then all kinds of things happen and it's not what you signed up for. Okay. All right. So now after the burning, so he stays there for 40 years. So according to some midrashim, he was 40 when he ran away and he was 80 when he came back. And then he was 40 years in the desert. And that's why they say Moses lived for 120 years. And when we want to wish someone to, it says he lived for 120 years in the Torah. When we want to wish someone long life, we say until 120. May you live until 120 because of the span of Moses's life. So after he has the whole experience, which we're not reading about, where the burning bush says, go down and tell Pharaoh to let my people go, we have this one sentence. So Moses took his wife and sons. So now we know he had two, mounted them on an ass and went back to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God with him. So maybe that's that staff from the Midrash that was mentioned. Suddenly he has this rod. So there it is. Okay, so here's the question.
So wait 1 minute for the staff. He got that with the burning bush episode when he threw, although you're saying that might have been Jethro's staff.
Well, or he claimed that it was a magical staff. We certainly know it was more, I don't know. I don't remember a staff. Is there a staff before this? What's the staff?
Because he's a shepherd. They have these things with the crook at the end of it.
Yeah, but it says Matah Elohim, the rod or staff of God.
But it may have become that when he encountered the God angel in the burning bush, and the God angel said, "Throw down your staff," and then it became a snake. Remember?
That's,
and then
that's in Egypt. That's in Egypt.
Wait a minute. A
Yeah,
midget
that's,
snake in the rod?
That's in Egypt. Once he's down there.
Wait a minute.
Is it also in the desert?
Well, the burning bush was when he was still in Midian, and he took out the flock.
There's a snake.
And then they say it could have been Mount Sinai, even in a smaller area, but the burning bush. And then God said with the trials, you know, the skin and the leprosy, and throw down the rod, and the rod turned into a snake. And God said, pick it up. He picked it up and it became a rod again, and it didn't bite him.
Wait a minute.
He picked it up the wrong way by the tail, which he shouldn't have done. Then the rod became a magical staff when he went back to Egypt.
No,
But initially-
no, Susan, wait, I'm looking.
Okay.
I'm looking because I say, maybe you're right.
well, that's the miracles, when he did the miracles with the staff.
That happened in front of Pharaoh.
Yes, he did.
Yes, but prior to that, you look it up.
You're right.
Prior to that, when he got the command to go.
Oh, no, you're right. What if they said, what if they do not believe me and do not listen to me? But say the Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, you are right. I forgot this. What is that in your hand? And he replied, a rod. Cast it on the ground. He cast it on the ground and it became a snake.
Correct.
Then the Lord said, pull out your hand and grasp it by the tail. He put out his hand and seized it, and it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, did appear to you.
What verse are you reading?
That is Exodus, it's 4, verse 2 and 3 and 4. You see it?
Yeah.
And also the rat was thrown down and turned into several snakes.
That's right. But I didn't remember this, and I think it's interesting. And I don't have an answer, so I'm curious. What do you make of that's the miracle, that your rod will become a snake? I mean, why is that proof? I mean, why choose that proof of all others? I think I have a slight idea.
Because Pharaoh was a snake.
Well, any other ideas about why, Leslie?
Okay, with my ignorance, a snake is a poisonous animal. And unless you're sort of blessed or holy or special or whatever, that snake's going to bite you. But he picked it up and it didn't, and it turned back into a staff. So it's a snake plus the Garden of Eden snake, and I think bad things.
I think that's interesting. I think you're right. I'm also wondering, was the snake a sacred image in Egypt?
Yeah, because didn't they all have snakes on their
Cobra.
headdresses and things like that?
It was.
Yeah, so that's interesting. The snake
It
was
was
symbolic of Egyptian power, I guess, or Egyptian holiness or Egyptian sacredness. And when he goes to Egypt, you know, there is that thing where he puts down the magicians put down their staffs and they become snakes, and then Moses puts down his, and his snake, their snakes. So that's very interesting. Okay.
That's amazing.
It was a symbol of Pharaoh. I mean, he had it on the headdress, you know, the cobra there. So
Yeah.
godlike. But an interesting thing I always found with that, not only is it poisonous, or not necessarily poisonous, but evil, and of course Nahash in the Garden of Eden, but it also can have the power of healing. And that's where the caduceus comes, where the rod has the
Right.
snake around it. And
Snake
Moses
on it.
later on in the desert holds that up to the people to heal them of the plague.
So, oh my God, this has been so interesting. So we just can do this for a few more minutes because as I said in the beginning, I have to substitute for Cantor Gurney at Brahman. I have to be there at 1:05. They told me
Wow.
originally 1:25 and then they said, oh, we made a mistake. It's 1:05.
May
So,
I question?
yeah.
When I was a young girl in North Carolina, we had a lake, Hope Mills Lakeland Estates. I would go swimming in the water. I didn't know any better. And there was poisonous water moccasins in the water and they never bit me.
Okay, well, that's great. You were very,
I'm just saying, it's freaking me out.
I just wanted to read this part because this is where we're going to continue next time. This is one of the most mysterious passages about Moses, and there's tons of, I learned some things about it because I was researching the Midrash. I just want you to know about this. It's really weird. So they're on their way to Egypt. At a night encampment on the way, the Lord encountered him and sought to kill him. So first of all, who? Is it Moses? Is it some other him? He had his sons with him. So that's a question. Okay, so then Sephora took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched his legs with it, saying, "You are truly a bridegroom of blood to me."
I have a
Oh,
question about this.
Yes, we have tons of questions.
Okay,
Right.
but you said before that Moses had to take a vow to Jethro that his first son would be raised as a pagan or an idol worshiper, right? And so maybe he wouldn't circumcise him because of that. And so Zipporah stepped in and did it to make him a Jew.
Yes,
makes
that
sense.
is one of the just very good. That is one of the explanations. And when he let him alone, she added a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision. So next week we got to talk about who's he? Who was going to be killed? Who did she put the blood on? Whose legs did she touch? Who's the bridegroom of blood? Is that her husband? It's just this fragment, and then it's like it moves on, and there's tons of questions about it, and also I just have to close with this. There is a woman mohel in Los Angeles that I actually did a bris with. She's fantastic, and according to this is where some rabbis in the Talmud say yes, women can be mohels, and some say no. But here we have the first woman mohel is Sephora, who I love. And we'll talk a lot more about her as a wife. And I said this in the beginning, to examine what kind of husband can a leader be, what kind of wife or what kind of marriage do you have when your husband belongs to the people? What do you have to give up? And what do you suffer? And so I'm really sorry, but I have to run. And this was so interesting today.
We
and
love you. We love you.
we'll pick it up
Bye.
in 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
So much.
all right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Welcome.
Sharon. Thank you, Penina. Thank you,
Bye.
Rabbi. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Everyone. Bye.
Bye.